Well, welcome to Hashtag War Room Pandemic, episode 316, broadcasting live from Capitol Hill. Jack Maxey and Raheem Kassam here in studio. Stephen K. Bannon joining us down the line on AmericasVoice.news, the John Fredericks Radio Network, later on Newsmax TV, and blown through the CCP's firewalls. Subtitled in Mandarin by G News and GTV. You're in the war room, and it's been a heck of a show so far this morning already. If you missed episode 315, go back and pay very close attention. Between Dr. Zelenko and Dr. Elizabeth Vliet, breaking news here live on this show this morning. Steve, want to get your thoughts on that?
Yeah, listen, we started the show back in January, and look, we're partisans, we're Trump partisans, but we try to be very even-handed and bring you information, including getting blown up a bunch from some folks on the right that think we overdo it sometimes. This is about American citizens. This is about saving American citizens' lives. This is not about an election in November. Because this pandemic is going to be with us for a while. This is about doing the right thing. We're going to have Dr. Yan on here in a second from Hong Kong University. From one of the top P3 labs in the world to discuss both hydroxy and to talk about the WHO. But I want to go back to what we've talked about this morning. Look, this show is not done to entertain you. We've said that from the very beginning. We do this to bring information to a broad audience throughout the world, and that's one of the reasons I think it's got such traction. But I got to tell you, I am very disappointed. This is action, action, action. When you talk to Dr. Vliet wrote this executive order that I think she gave to Senator Ron Johnson back in March and April. We're now months and months and months and months into this thing, and it's time to stop playing games. It's time to take action. And I think what Dr. Vliet, hopefully we'll get that clip back up before the end of the show, if not right after the show, what she just said before she left. Jack, Raheem, I'd like to hear your thoughts, but she was very specific about what needs to be done today, not tomorrow and not the next day, but today. Action has to be taken today on this. Guys, I'd like to know your thoughts on that, and particularly the audience's thought. I'd love to get hashtag War and Pandemic, the live feed, all the other places that people listen to us and watch us to get your feedback on today's show.
Steve, I've got a couple of great readouts here. Big news on today's show, simply the best damned intel sheet for the common man. But we need a few episodes dedicated to how us deplorables can take action, action, action. Info warfare isn't good enough. We need to fight back. Then we have another one that says, so sad, third world countries are conquering the virus, but we can't. The media, Fauci, and FDA should be charged with war crimes. And then this one really touched me. This old nurse is sitting here crying and thanking you guys for the fight for HCQ and human lives over profit. So, people are listening, Steve.
Well, listen, the people are fighting. You know, Dr. Zelenko, he's not on a sickbed. Dr. Zelenko may be on his deathbed. He just had a very serious operation. He's fighting cancer. You know, this is a guy's coming off his deathbed to warn the American people, like he took action back in March to save all the Jewish community, that community up in Monroe, New York. This is what's so upsetting. The time for the games is over, and now's the time for action. This is not about an election. It's not about 2020. This is about the United States of America. This is about American citizens, whether you're a Bernie Sanders progressive, whether you're in Black Lives Matter or Antifa. It doesn't matter. This is about the lives of the American citizens. This action has to be taken. I got to tell you, it's getting more and more frustrating now, 7 months into doing this show, and just seeing the complete dropping of the ball. This is time for action. There's no more excuses. You've got the best minds in the country. This is not Jack Maxey and Steve Bannon saying this. This is people like Dr. Risch from Yale Medical School. This is people like Dr. Vliet, Dr. Yan. You got the top minds in the country. And also it's what the FDA, it's basically what Fauci's done, you know, back in 2005. That's what's so frustrating about this, and I think that's why people are getting so frustrated about it, is that the United States should be a leader. And to be a leader, you have to take action. And I think it's very clear what has to be done here. Raheem, back to you.
Well, we have Dr. Yan, who's on standby as well here, Steve. So you know, just feel free to bring her in whenever you want. I just want to bring a quick message.
I tell you what, Raheem, Raheem, can we play the clips? And I want Dr. Yan to first respond to these clips about hydroxy, and then we'll talk about WHO after that. But I'd love to have her feedback on these clips.
I will. I'll just in just one moment, Steve, because I want to bring a message from our sponsors as well here as well. With $6 trillion spent on COVID-19 and the national debt soaring to $26 trillion, it's not the right time to wait for the bottom to fall out of stocks. It's time to protect your savings, including your IRA or 401k. Gold and silver are typically safe havens against that uncertainty, and the company we trust with precious metals purchases is the Birch Gold Group. Right now, thanks to a little-known IRS tax law, you can move your IRA or eligible 401k into an IRA backed by physical gold and silver. It's perfect for those who want to protect their hard-earned retirement savings from any more downturns in stock. So you can contact the Birch Gold Group, one of the sponsors of this show, to receive a free info kit on physical precious metals. See if diversifying into gold and silver makes sense for you. It's a 20-page kit that shows you how you can legally move your IRA or 401k out of risky stocks and bonds and into a precious metals IRA. So you can text Bannon right now to 474747 for a limited time. You can see how you can qualify for up to $10,000 in free precious metals on your purchase. Text Bannon, Bannon, to 474747. Let's roll these clips ahead of Dr. Yan, and we'll get Dr. Yan's feedback on them. Let's just roll them all in order to the America's Voice producers, and let's go.
Should people take hydroxychloroquine as a cure for COVID-19?
The overwhelming cumulative evidence of properly conducted randomized controlled trials.
Why are they banning it if it does work in certain cases?
Because science and medicine has always been full of accounts like this. And that's why you do randomized clinical trials, to actually be able to compare patient to patient. Everything that you just reported on had no controls in those individual practices. We know in the randomized controlled trials to date, and there's been several of them, that there's not evidence that it improves those patients' outcomes, whether they have mild, moderate disease or whether they're seriously ill in the hospital. Medicine always has these reports, and that's why we do these randomized controlled trials. There also may be a specific subgroup that does benefit.
Thank you for that opportunity to comment. The Henry Ford Hospital study that was published was a non-controlled retrospective cohort study that was confounded by a number of issues, including the fact that many of the people who were receiving hydroxychloroquine were also receiving corticosteroids, which we know from another study gives a clear benefit in reducing deaths with advanced disease. So that study is a flawed study, and I think anyone who examines it carefully is that it is not a randomized placebo-controlled trial.
It says it's peer-reviewed.
It doesn't matter. You can peer review something that's a bad study, but the fact is it is not a randomized placebo-controlled trial. The point that I think is important, because we all want to keep an open mind, any and all of the randomized placebo-controlled trials, which is the gold standard of determining if something is effective, none of them had shown any efficacy for hydroxychloroquine.
That at this stage and at this moment in time, we're not recommending it, but we're not recommending it. We're recommending for the physician and the patient to have that discussion.
Okay, Steve, that's 3 out of the 4 horsemen of the hydrocalypse. The other one, Admiral Giroir, out this weekend as well on the same topic. I want to throw it back to you and bring in Dr. Yan here, Steve.
Well, let's bring in Dr. Yan, and guys, it may be a little choppy out here for me to conduct this, but you guys jump in. Let's get Dr. Yan from Hong Kong University. Let's get her response right now to the what do you call hydrocalypse?
No, the hydrocalypse.
You know, the complete barrage, the complete barrage by the medical establishment, people on the task force. I'd like to hear what Dr. Yan thinks.
Dr. Yan,
good
why don't you
morning,
take
Ms.
us away?
Bannon. Good morning, everyone.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, listen to such clips and also listen to Dr. Zelenko and Dr. Lee. I think everyone can make their own judgment. Just use your common sense. Yeah, let's talk about science, talk about clinical trial, talk about golden standard. I think Dr. Fauci just mentioned golden standard, right? Here, I think the golden standard should be honest, should be straightforward. Let's say hydroxychloroquine. based on the clinical trials. There are many good clinical trials already show the effect of prevention and also early treatment to COVID-19. But why these high position people like Dr. Fauci or some CDC authorities, they don't admit this, and they use their word to even try to humiliate this, like the Henry Ford Institute, those kind of study. They try to humiliate it, and also they just like those poor quality ones, like overdose use of hydroxychloroquine in the patient, or use some fake data clinical trial, which is published even in Lancet, and WHO quickly cited it to cancel all the clinical trial for HCQ, and then later that paper was withdrawn. So these are the basement for not recommend HCQ. And back to say now the situation is very emergency, right? Every minute people get infected. Every minute people get dead. So imagine these are the people around you. It's yourself, it's your family, it's your friend. How could you let such a safe long-term use drug be ignored just because those authorities not admit they're effective? But from back to the first-line doctors, like Dr. Zelenko, like many other doctors, like Dr. Stella, like many doctors who signed a letter to us to use the HCQ, they see the real effect on patient. Yeah. And the first-line medical staffs always the ones face the highest risk in this kind of pandemic. They want to save people. They also need to protect themselves. These songs are ignored, filtered from the year of those high-level authorities. They use their position.
Doctor, I just want to jump in with a question here. You're absolutely right. I just want to make sure that we cover everything. We're going to hold you over to the next segment as well, if that's okay with you. But we've got about 1 minute left here in this segment. I want to ask you this question, because we've become accustomed to the media and the task force, the doctors, shifting the goalposts time and time again when it comes to this pandemic. Changing the rules, changing the length of times, changing the quarantine rules, all of that. Is Dr. Fauci changing the goalpost when he talks about randomized controlled placebo trials when the FDA documents themselves state very clearly may be effective? Dr. Yan.
Yeah, this is something they always change. Actually, what I want to stress is in the emergency use, they should not only keep play on words, and they should think about even for vaccine study. Now they skip some very critical steps, right? Because it's emergency use. Dr. Fauci is playing on the word, and also they now cannot deny the HCQ is useful drug. So they start to play on words that it's not effective, you cannot use, just because they are afraid of the emergency use is occupied by HCQ, not by some other huge benefit behind the new drugs.
Wow. Well, we're going to come back to you, Dr. Yan, in just a moment for more from that. But that's a bombshell. It's a bombshell that's been dropped several times this morning on the show, ladies and gentlemen. Just remember that. The emergency use, if that's used for hydroxychloroquine, that means, as Dr. Yan just said, as Dr. Vliet has said, as Dr. Zelenko has said, they can't use that for something else in this scenario. And that's what we're going to be drilling down into in the next segment as well. With Dr. Yan, Jack Maxey will lead the conversation in the next segment. Stephen K. Bannon, Raheem Kassam here in the War Room. We'll be right back after this short break.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Well, 2020 has been a gut punch to American business. One of the sponsors of this show can help you get back on your feet as America reopens for business. That's NetSuite by Oracle, the world's #1 cloud business system. You can get a free guide, the 7 actions businesses need to take now, at netsuite.com/Bannon. You're back in the War Room with Raheem Kassam, Jack Maxey, Dr. Yan, and Stephen K. Bannon here for another segment with you. Dr. Yan, I just want to ask you this one question before I hand it over to Jack Maxey here in the studio. But I wanted to ask you this. The Chinese Communist Party and the upper echelons of the Chinese Communist Party are very clear and very braggadocious and boastful about the fact that they do not have a high level of contamination of COVID-19 of their most senior party members. Is that somehow related to hydroxychloroquine?
Yes, exactly. According to my intelligence, exactly. They are using it for prevention even back to end of December. Remember, at that time, no one in the world even knows there is a new unknown pneumonia called COVID-19. And also what I want to stress is, since 29 January 2020, the Dr. Moore, through the oldest YouTube broadcast, the first time in the world delivers a message to Chinese audience that hydroxychloroquine can be used to prevent and also for early treatment for the COVID-19 based on the scientific evidence. We really had a lot of feedback from our audience. They use it in such pandemic in China back to early this year. You should remember, right? Crazy time. But those people who listen to it and buy the drug and also recommend it to people around them, they did get saved. We have a lot of feedback. So this is quite effective drug.
Doctor, it's Jack. I have a question about the World Health Organization and the ending of these double-blind studies that Fauci et al., all of them want to see these studies. But when the Lancet article came out with the bad data that was rescinded, that the FDA used to change their criteria, didn't also over 25 different studies, many of them funded by the World Health Organization around the world, that were midstream studying the effectiveness of HCQ as an early treatment, all of those got canceled. All of the data was destroyed. All of the, you can't restart a study after 2 weeks on after it's been stopped. When you stop it, it's stopped. So in actual fact, this actually kept us from moving forward in the discovery of hydroxychloroquine. Wouldn't you say that that is true?
Yes. So this is a big loss for the human being society to know how effective the hydroxychloroquine will be. And also, I really want to stress it. Now SARS-CoV-2 is the new version of the virus pathogen you never seen in human history, which can induce quite a lot of damage to humans' global health and also economic. Meanwhile, the desperately hunting for HCQ is also the first time in humans' history. This is a drug for over 20 years recommended by WHO in their safest drug list for even children. And now they try to stop people to use it. And now they try to stop all the different type of the data come from the first line of the doctors who really can reflect the result of HCQ for prevention and treatment. We see there are many countries like India, like Egypt, like Indonesia, they applied HCQ. This is cheap, this is useful. See their mortality is quite low, right? Why cannot we use it in US? For what? I think the only reason is because HCQ is a big problem for many people to use their funding for their study to develop the new benefit drugs or vaccine in the future. They cannot let HCQ, this kind of cheap, safe drug, stay here, which will make the public not expect for the new studies, but they will just turn to this drug to use it to help themselves.
Dr. Yan, so I'm going to try and explain for the audience. What we're talking about is if you are a professional researcher, seeking out funding for your research is the mother's milk of your entire career. And the reality is nobody is sending out any research grants to study HCQ, but they are sending out research grants to study potential vaccines. Now, to put this in perspective for our audience, if we treated every single American with hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin, that would come out to a cost of roughly $6 billion at $20 a dosage. The United States government, according to the New York Times on July 31st, has already invested more than $8 billion in vaccine development. This is through various big pharma, private enterprise projects. So you begin to understand that there is a lot of money at stake here. And I see a lot of parallels actually here between the banning of DDT and the banning of hydroxychloroquine. And in both cases, it was for the profits of patented alternatives that weren't really even as effective. It's horrifying to me, Doctor.
Yes, so let me explain this to you. Let's say what they recommend now. Now they recommend steroid and remdesivir. These are the drugs for the severe cases patient. And so they leave the early stage of treatment and also prevention stage as empty. So that's why they can donate a lot of money. I mean, this is a very reasonable thing, right? If you don't have this can be cope with the COVID-19 at early stage and as prevention, you have to put a lot of money to the new industry for the vaccine, for new drugs, right? But if you admit HCQ can be the one to use applied in the early stage and the prevention, then those funding should turn to HCQ more than the others, because first it's already established as a safe drug, and also for mechanism is just according to the situation in COVID-19, like cytokine storm, like how the virus replication in humans' body, this HCQ can be applied to focus against this pathology. So if you turn to HCQ, money donate to HCQ study, then it will be cheaper, and also it's more difficult for the pharmacy, for industry, for institute to apply the grant to do the new study. Yeah. They have to put more solid evidence to persuade the funding committee to give them money. I can tell you based on my own story that back to this February, even in Hong Kong, the government gave the emergency grant. Oh yeah, it comes from Bill Gates Foundation too. So there is a huge amount of money come to us. Basically, you just write something, show you are research in vaccine, in virology. You can do something to try to find the vaccine. Then you get big amount of money. This will give you reputation. It can help you get promotion. This is basically the money are hating you. Do you understand this? So who will turn to HCQ in that case and give up the funding things?
Yeah.
So that is a very sad truth.
Dr. Yan, I want to bring Steve in here. I know he's got a couple of questions for you just before we break. We've got about 3.5 minutes here, Steve.
Yeah, I never like to stop diatribes when a brilliant doctor, research is beating up Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation. But I want to go into another topic, Doctor, and we'd like to have you stay over for the next segment. The guys will probably run that interview. It's getting a little windy here, but look, they just announced yesterday WHO is negotiating with the CCP on terms of getting into these labs. They were actually in Beijing negotiating this. This is, 7 months, 8 months into this pandemic. WHO with Tedros, the running dog of the CCP, is over there heading up a negotiation, and they don't reach any kind of conclusion. In fact, he says, hey, we never may find a silver bullet. What he's trying to signal is that they're not going to get to the bottom of this. What I'd like to ask you is, why is WHO, why have we allowed the World Health Organization to take the lead here when, as you saw up close and personal in Hong Kong, they're part of the problem? The President of the United States should say 72 hours to turn over every document. 72 hours to make every scientist available, every email, every text message, every gain-of-function experiment. And if he doesn't, if it's not turned over immediately, they ought to start sanctioning individuals at the top of the scale, from General Secretary Xi to Wang Xishan, all the way down to sanction the banks, stop the U.S. dollar. We got to stop playing games. And what's not on page 20 of the New York Times, because they won't make it the lead story, the WHO is making no progress 8 months into this, into getting into the Wuhan lab. So Dr. Yan, I'd like to turn it back over to you, and Raheem, I want to bring it back after the break.
Sure, Dr. Yan, you got about 90 seconds here, and then we'll bring you back, but go ahead.
So because the WHO now what they can do, they have lied about, collaborate with CCP and organize reviewed by us, right? So now they have to negotiate for the next step of the line. That's what they can do. See, their zoonotic origin things also failed because we revealed the truth on time. So what they can do, we cannot trust WHO now. They already lost their credibility, and there are a lot of benefits behind it. I know I have a lot of evidence. It's like how prophylactic periods try to manipulate them and do the same thing as CCP wants them to do. This is how WHO behaved. We have seen it for half a year already, right? And also, now the WHO try to let people thought there is no silver bullet. So they want to deliver the panic to people. One hand, they want you to thought HCQ, this kind of drug, it cannot be used. The other hand, they tell you, see, we still don't have the way to solve it. And this panic will let people lose their hope. And also this kind of panic will let the government try to lock down again and keep people at home. This will definitely ruin the economy.
Dr. Yan, we're going to just hold over the break. We want to bring you back in, get more thoughts from you. We've got some breaking news as well in the next segment. Be right back.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Well, we do have some breaking news here coming out of Beirut in Lebanon right now. It's Tuesday, August the 4th, the year of our Lord 2020, and there appears to have been some kind of massive explosion at Beirut's port. We're going to run the video for you here just so you can see the scale and the size of this thing. This is live breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. There are multiple camera angle shots of this thing on Twitter. We're going to bring you as much information as we can as we get it here. There may well be a second explosion as well. We're keeping a very close eye on it, but the news agencies in the region now saying 2 explosions in the last 15 minutes, one at a port, one inside Beirut. Reports suggest it's near former Prime Minister Hariri's residence in the city center. The second very loud shook the city and houses. This week is, of course, the International Tribunal's verdict into the killing of Rafiq Hariri. And as you can see, I mean, just the scenes absolutely stunning there on your screens of these huge explosions, one in the port, one further on in the city. And we will we'll be keeping you abreast of the details if and when we get it over the course of the next half an hour live on this show. Hashtag War Room Pandemic. Want to now turn back to Dr. Yan. Before that, I want to make sure that you guys are also abreast of all the information you guys need as America reopens for business. NetSuite, remember, is a sponsor of this show, the world's #1 cloud business system. Smart companies run on NetSuite because it lets you control your financials, HR, inventory, e-commerce, and more. So if you're doing 100 million or $1 million in sales, you'll have the agility to compete with anyone from anywhere, run your whole company right from your phone. So you can join over 20,000 companies who trust NetSuite to make it happen for them. You can get your free guide, 7 actions businesses need to take now, and schedule your free product tour at netsuite.com/Bannon. That's netsuite.com/Bannon. Okay, the scenes as you saw them on your screen just a moment ago, you'll appreciate, ladies and gentlemen, that we get breaking news. We like to bring it to you live. We don't always know the full story, but we try and follow it as much as humanly possible and bring you breaking news. And the scenes, I mean, you look at other videos of this thing from far beyond the city, scenes from inside the local newspaper offices. Absolutely devastating buildings in the blast area. So we'll keep an eye on that. Dr. Yan, I want to bring Dr. Yan back in now. Dr. Yan, we're very grateful for your contributions to this show and really your contributions to humanity so far in the last couple of weeks that we've got to know you here. I want to throw it back over to Jack Maxey in just a second. Before I do, just once again want to understand, Dr. Yan, this whole WHO CCP link that's here with the WHO. I mean, is it a real negotiation to get into any of the labs, to any of the facilities? Does the CCP really even have to block that hard? Just explain to us the dynamic here, because for a lot of the Western audiences watching this, it looks like the WHO is completely and utterly useless, completely feckless organization, not worth being a part of, not worth investing in. A lot of Americans want refunds for the decades that they've been a part of this already. What is exactly the dynamic between the World Health Organization and the Chinese Communist Party, Dr. Yang?
Okay, simply I can tell you that first I have been stay under the control of CCP government for over 30 years. So basically I know it more than most of the Western peoples. And we know how the CCP government can control the voice from the authorities. Once they control the authorities, those people will use their professional positions and use their titles to let people trust them. And once these people listen to CCP, they can deliver whatever message the CCP government want you to believe. Now it has been shown the big success in China because their propaganda, because of their enforcement, they can also almost control most of the people. I mean, 1.4 billion Chinese people has to listen to them. Now this is just the same thing is applied to overseas, to Western countries. So for this purpose, they need to use the international organization like WHO. I don't need to show more evidence. I think everyone can say from back to December 2019, how their response, from WHO to this COVID-19 outbreak, to January, February, March, all these things. They've been to China even before, right? And they have been to China even last week. What did they say? And what can they say? Everything listened to the Ministry of the Foreign in China, Foreign Affairs in China. So I think the negotiation, it may exist, but the negotiation is to negotiate the benefit between WHO and CCP government. And then later they will sit down to talk about what to tell people, whether this is really from some bad, from even one belt, one road countries, and or maybe this is some poor animals they suddenly caught in Wuhan, or this may be some leakage from some lab in China. Come on, these are all the things you may see in the next steps. So these are their negotiations. I think everyone should start to justify it based on whether WHO has its credibility.
Doctor, I want to just re-illustrate what you said. Essentially, the World Health Organization was involved in the first lie, right? The idea that this was not communicable human to human. They knew about it at a minimum at December 31st from the Free Chinese in Taiwan. So what you are saying essentially is that this current negotiation between the World Health Organization and the Communist Party to investigate the source of this virus is really a negotiation to perfect the second lie. Am I getting that correctly?
They try to perfect, but the lies can never be perfect. I can show you something. Remember, I have mentioned the scientific report I and my team prepared for. Now I can show you some photos. I think WHO expert like Dr. Fauci, like CCP, they can remember this photo because later this whole report will be published to all the people. They can read it. They can see what exactly the SARS-CoV-2 virus is, whether it is come from nature or maybe it's more easy. You can get it from the lab. Just need to have the PLA-owned Zhoushan bat coronavirus. And also based on this, WHO has already covered numerous lies for CCP. And I remember there is a funny thing. So at the end of February, WHO have sent some experts to Wuhan, did some investigation and published a paper. Published some documents that they really think Chinese government did a good thing in anti-COVID-19. But even in that document, they dare not to admit Xi Jinping's RATG13 virus. That document on WHO's website also points out that COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2, actually is most close origin from the Zhoushan bat virus.
So you're saying that the closest related virus to this is a virus that is in the catalog of viruses in the possession of the People's Liberation Army, that they took from a bat, and this is highly indicative that perhaps this COVID-19 that we are all suffering under, the CCP virus, originated in gain of function or some manipulation inside a PLA-controlled lab, perhaps the one in Wuhan?
Yeah, I think it can be in PLA's any lab, because PLA owns so many labs. It's not has to be specifically even in Wuhan. It also can be in Hong Kong. It also can be in Harbin, in Shanghai, in any labs if they want you to do it, because it's controlled by PLA. And yes, for gain of function research, I think Dr. Fauci knows it more than me, how they approve those gain of function research funding to those Chinese labs under CCP's control.
There's also, Doctor, a real belief throughout Western science that oftentimes Western scientists who have a rogue path that they want to follow for scientific research, gain of function being one of those, it's highly restricted here in the United States and much of the West, that they take their money and their ideas to Chinese laboratories where there are lower standards, less stringent standards concerning what kinds of research can be done. Can you talk to a little bit about that, about how Western doctors use the Chinese system to engage in scientific discovery that probably they would not be allowed to do at Harvard?
I think there is one more very well-known cases, which is Dr. He Jiankui in 2018 did some gene editing baby tests in China. This kind of experiment is never allowed in overseas countries, and actually in China it should also be stopped too, but somehow they can do it because it's like the government know it and they pretend they don't know it and let him did that. And also we even can see from the Science journal, they have write the article later to show actually there are potential links between American scientists, even some Nobel laureates, to get involved into Dr. He Jiankui's study. So this is a very typical and well-known example for how the research can do something which is not allowed, but actually you can do it in China. And I can say I'm the one who stayed in that conference at that time and also asked questions from Dr. He Jiankui, so I know the whole story.
Do you know what's frightening about this, Doctor? There's a historical example of this for the world that they can listen to. The experiments done by the Nazi regime that did not meet any kind of moral or ethical standards. Some of this science that was looked into by, and I use science in quotation marks, in some of the death camps. And this idea, I believe you're referencing the study that came out a few months ago where they were putting actually human genes inside monkey embryos. Is this the one they were going to try and determine whether or not it changed the intelligence of the monkeys? It's kind of frightening in so many levels.
Yes, they want to do all these type of things, and because back to the CCP government, they tell people don't have any religion. You just need to believe in your Chinese Communist Party. So whatever they want to do should be the thing you can do. That's why people lose their religion, lose their faith, and so they don't trust that something you should not do, which will give you the bad consequence. They just do it for some big benefits, and also the government want people to do it to get huge things behind it, like do the genome editing baby to see how the gene editing can be done in human being, like do the gain the function research, you can see how powerful the virus can be. And yet this virus really has done something, right? How it influenced the global health, how it destroyed the economics, right? It really did something.
So, Doctor, we have only about a minute and a half here before we go to the break. Do you believe that the world needs to hold the Chinese Communist Party responsible for what has happened?
Of course, because I just want to remind our audience one thing. When I was in the virus lab, when we try to do no matter vaccine or viral function testing, when we do the virus replication or something. We never just make one type of virus. We make a lot of string of virus and stock. And then later we will test their function, test their characters, and then keep something we thought maybe not that useful, not optimal at this moment for the later use. So just image this virus is not come from nature. This is lab modified. Whether they would only make the only one specific virus string, as you know, use the common sense, I'm sure people will understand it. So if you let
Dr.
it
Yan.
go, later even HCQ vaccine cannot work.
Dr. Yan, we're very grateful for your time and all the great work you and your colleagues are doing. We're going to go to a quick break now. When we come back, Evan Sayet will be joining us, author of The Woke Supremacy and Anti-Socialist Manifesto. Hashtag War and Pandemic returns in just a second.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Well, as some of you can probably tell, I actually do a lot of different things during this show, whether it's monitoring the live chat, editing articles that are supposed to go up on the National Pulse this morning, but tend to end up going out at about 12 or 12:30 in the afternoon because we're editing them on the fly during the show, monitoring the live breaking news as we brought to you during the show as well, and herding the cat that is Jack Maxey. You know, it's a very, very big job here in the War Room. But I just wanted to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, that the conversations that we've had over the course of the day, as it pertains to hydroxychloroquine, the emergency use authorization from Dr. Zelenko, Dr. Vliet, Dr. Yan, and that document that we've been talking about this morning, they will be up on the National Pulse in very short order. So do yourselves a favor, thenationalpulse.com. I will make sure as soon as the show ends here in about, 6.5 minutes, we'll get you those details and that full document. You know, I want to make sure that you guys make it go super viral, I suppose is the pun, today. Make sure everyone hears about this. All right, I'm going to pivot now to a long-term, I would say, friend of mine, smoking buddy. Whenever we're out at any of these conservative conferences, standing in the freezing cold outside that smoker's bowl. Of course, I don't do any of that vile stuff anymore. But Evan Sayet is the author of The Woke Supremacy and Anti-Socialist Manifesto. Brand new book that's coming out. I think we can get it up on screen as well, so that the audience can make sure they see it. The Woke Supremacy, there it's on your screens right now, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you head on over to wherever Evan is about to tell you to get it. Evan, welcome to the show. It's been too long. Tell us what the woke supremacy is.
Hey, Raheem. Listen, I, like a lot of other people, think we being America, are on the verge of a civil war. And while there are tons of books out there that chronicle the wrongs of the left, that chronicle the wrongs of the woke, I don't think there's anything out there that really explains who they are, what they want, where they came from, what they're willing to do to accomplish their ends, and what those ends are. You know, and one of the most famous expressions is know your enemy. And we know the evil that they do, we know the wrongs they commit, but I don't think there's a book out there that explains, as I do my original book, The Kindergarten of Eden, How the Modern Liberal Thinks, how I deconstructed their ideology. I do the same for the woke, and I call it the woke supremacy.
So tell us a little bit more. I mean, this is something that you've watched carefully, and I suppose we should be very grateful, by the way, Evan, that you have such a good sense of humor, because otherwise it would be tragedy upon tragedy. But tell us how the situation we find ourselves in now differs from the decades you've seen before, or if it's just the inevitable eventuality of all the things that we've tolerated.
Well, it's a combination of those things, but it started with the radicals of the 1960s who declared war against America. I mean, they literally, hi, I'm Bernardine Dorn, and I'm going to read to you a declaration of war. They committed acts of war, and they tried to foment revolution, starting with a race riot. That's what they were looking for. You know, they cheered when William Ayers from the terrorist group, the Weather Underground, had their first terrorist meeting, the first Weather Underground meeting in Flint, Michigan, they cheered Charles Manson. All right, so this is the mentality of the left. And of course, Manson's goal was to start a massive race riot that he called Helter Skelter, a race war, rather. And this was, in fact, the radicals of the 60s goal as well. Well, their revolution failed in the 60s because they couldn't attract anybody from the real world to join them. I mean, the people that they were hoping would join them in the revolution didn't hate America. They hated socialism. Millions of them had just fled socialism, whether it was the socialism in Nazi Germany or the socialism in Soviet Russia, and millions more just come back from a war where they'd seen what socialism did, whether, fighting the Nazis. And so they couldn't get any grown-ups to join them. In fact, there's a great quote from Muhammad Ali in a slightly different context that shows how Americans felt about America in that era. Ali went to go fight the Rumble in the Jungle, a big fight in Zaire, Africa. And he trained over there for about a month, as I recall. And when he came home, reporters asked him, Muhammad, okay, now remember, this is a black man from the Democratic Party-controlled South who had long since converted to Islam. They said, Muhammad, what did you think of Africa? And he said, quote, thank God my granddaddy got on that boat. So they couldn't get anybody who knew the real world to join them. So they went semi-underground. They did what we all know as the long march through the institutions. They took over the schools. They took over the entertainment industry. They took over news and journalism and turned them into the revolution's ministries of indoctrination, the schools, propaganda, news and entertainment, and now with social media, the ministries of communications. And they indoctrinated successive generations into the ideology of the revolution. They created people with racial grievances with ethnic studies classes, and they did what Saul Alinsky suggested they do, the rules for radicals, rub raw the saws of discontent. So they instilled them with discontent and then rubbed them raw, and they're still continuing to try to foment this revolution. And Mark Rudd, one of the bloodthirsty people who called on Americans to murder their parents and to kill cops back in the 60s, Mark Rudd said, the true flowering of the 60s will come in the 90s when we've taken over the institutions. Well, he was wrong only because he missed the obvious. They would need one more 30-year period to then use those institutions to brainwash their social justice warriors, the people who would take to the streets in this revolution. Well, Raheem, if the 60s to the 90s is 30 years, what's 30 years from the 90s? 2020. They have come of age. They've been waiting for their soldiers to come of age.
Yep.
Their soldiers have now come of age, and this is why they've taken off the mask. They call themselves socialists again. This is why the fangs have come out again. This is why the bloodshed, the cop killing, all the things that the 60s radicals...
Evan,
yes, sir.
We're up against a hard out here, so I just want to, before you go, let the audience know where they can get your book, what's your website, where they can follow you on Twitter, and for the America's Voice producers, let's put that book up on screen real quick. Go ahead, Evan.
And everything is just Evan Sayet. It's evansayet.com. It's hashtag Evan Sayet. There it is right there, EVANSAYET. The book drops on Friday, so today's Wednesday? So keep it in mind for the next 2 days, and then go get yourself a copy of this book. I kept it short because I wanted it to be bite-sized and digestible and something people would read. And I think it's one of the most important books you can possibly
thank
read.
you so much for writing it. We'll definitely be reading it. We'll get you back on the show as well. And as I said in the break, you're always right the second time. It is indeed Tuesday today. War Room Pandemic returns tomorrow at 10 a.m. Stephen K. Bannon, Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam. Thank you all out there for hitting that share button. See you tomorrow.